Why do men need to come back? And I ask that because men need a purpose. If you come back, you will have feelings. If you come back, other people will be happy. If you come back, you will get more sex. Right? You've got porn. You've got OnlyFans. You've got prostitution. You've got sex robots probably coming next week or whenever. We've got all kinds of AI programs. You've got all kinds of stuff. Are men
because
lonely?
if men were really happy, then they wouldn't be self-canceling themselves four times more than women were. If they were yes.
What makes men happy? What really makes men happy? Because we take such a female model of what's going to make men happy, and we try to change it, and we've had messaging for decades. Guys, be more sensitive. Guys have more feelings. Guys can cry too. Guys should be crying. We've got generations of men raised by women, and single moms. And we talk about men are only taught to emotions, and men are not taught to feel, and men are taught to suppress, but men aren't being taught these things necessarily by other men. Men have less and less contact with other men than ever.
And whose fault is that?
Well, we primarily have contact with women and single moms.
And whose fault is a single mom?
Whose do you think it is?
Well, who's
Are you blaming the dad?
Who has left the family?
Did the dads leave the family, or were the dads kicked out of the family?
Definitely both. 100%.
So you're blaming the dads for that. Okay. Well,
no, I'm not blaming the dads for that at all.
Okay.
Don't put words in my mouth. But you're saying, but you were blaming the woman right there. You were just saying.
Oh, no. Wait a minute. Now, women have been raising men for generations now. Men have been almost entirely raised purely on a female and feminine perspective for decades. And yet our suicide rate is 4 times that of women now. It's escalating through the roof, and no one wants to talk about it. Men are more unhappy than they have ever been, but they're also more feminized than they have ever been. So we keep talking about making men happy.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, about what Adam just said, starting from school all the way up. So you can correct me if I get these names wrong.
Please.
But Jordan Peterson often references Jean Piaget and individualism in school, taught responsibility, taught to be a contributing member of society, and meritocracy. So there's an organization in America called Teach for America. And this is where I need some potential correction. I believe it's Foucault that was more about collectivism.
I believe you're right.
Okay. So the founder of that organization basically wanted to take a McDonald's approach to teaching, where they have teachers, substitute teachers scattered all across America for $14 an hour, teaching collectivism, equity, diversity, all of these things that are now about the group in the classroom instead of what you can do individually for yourself, and then eventually for something entrepreneurial. It's more about let's all be the same, let's all be equal, let's all have a gray society, kind of like The Giver. And I would say that a lot of boys are then told to pay attention to this boring classroom and here's some drugs if you don't behave, and then you're wrong, you're the problem. You grow up to be a man, which is the devil incarnate, and then they end up in a situation where they're now pulled more towards feelings later on in, let's say, the college stage. And Western men don't know how to be men anymore. Whatever that means, I'm not sure. But I think there's an underlying potential issue with that.
Yeah. Who is the majority of government led by?
Where?
Just top of top, White House to Senate to House. Who is the majority led by?
Both men and women.
Men, by a sweeping number. So if men are in charge of legislation here in the United States, we have not had a female president to date that I know of. Why aren't more men within that legislation working on the school systems? Why are they not working on getting teachers paid better? Because if men made more money, if men were rewarded more for going into the school system, were paid hourly. Now, I'll give you an example. On the East Coast, more teachers are men because they get paid $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. They get paid a much more significant wage than anywhere else. Men are staying away from those fields because, perfect example, my brother was a teacher for 10 years. He, at one point, 3 kids in, said, sorry, I can't afford to support my family. He became a financial advisor. So that was a high school male teacher that was disincentivized by our government, who is run by men. So who then is to blame?
I have a great answer for that, potentially. So you're talking more about unions at this point, and why do things not get better? Because you can't get fired. You maybe can't get a raise, but you certainly can't get fired. And the amount of terrible teachers is far outweighing the balance of good teachers. I think there was a time and a place for unions. If anyone's heard of or read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, I think I referenced that last time. When you look at the quality of the worker in the 1900s, there was a potential argument for unions and even a little bit of communism at the time. It made sense to protect people. Now, it's gone very far in a different direction, and I think unions are destroying the West because everyone's falling into this lockstep of I must work for the government because I can't get fired no matter what I do unless I say something egregious. So Canada is that model. Everyone ends up in a government position or a social services position, and there's really not that much else. Like, you can't get many jobs in Canada anymore. Observationally, it's very blue collar or white collar, but specifically working for the government. Not much innovation, not much tech, not much happening outside of that. All the jobs are in America or moving out of the West entirely. So I think there's a lot of funding going into teaching, and there's a lot of students who can't read. So I think there's a big problem there in terms of what are we actually doing? Just propping up teachers who can't be fired through technology has also caused a lot of disruption in the classroom. Maybe there's some sort of reform that needs to happen to classrooms and the upbringing of boys and girls in school to create a better, healthier, happier society where people can be a little bit more brought to the middle.